Here we go once more into the madness of a final boss battle. It's a little bit of deja vu where you think, haven't you been here before? It's like, I have been, and here I am for the third time, and it doesn't fail to disappoint. The final boss in a Ratchet and Clank game being something of a self-induced brain bleed. But I'm determined to finish this off. 2 out of 3, I guess you could say. After my solid attempt at the boss in the first one that I ultimately gave up on in order to save some brain cells. I thought, I've got to I conquered the second one, managed to do that, and then here we stand after having attempted to take down the boss in the end of the last stream. Stream number 3, which I was hoping would be the last one. But I was getting to the end of my wits there as well. I just wanted the stream to kind of be over at the same time because it'd been going for a few hours. So here we go with stream number 4, and we're starting off. I don't know exactly where it'll start me off, but it'll be somewhere just around before that boss, basically. So let's do it. Boss battle time. Okay. Cool. I am at the actual boss battle. That's a relief, I do have to say. So I don't even have to start anywhere earlier. I'm straight into it. Okay. Let's get comfy and let's get into it. Okay, we've whittled them down to there, which isn't that hard, but it's getting the rest of that health bar down. Because no more, it's not like you're, I mean, more ammo does sort of show up, but dribs and drabs, and not like really what I would say a healthy quantity. Also the fact that you have to get through a ton of guys still. Which is a little frustrating. Oh, come on. And you can't even hit him there like that either when he's in that state. Have you noticed that? He's got that shield on. So we've literally just got to get, like, there's nothing you can do to him at this stage. I really want to save this sniper rifle for him though. Because it's actually weirdly, it's the weapon that I've got that does the most amount of damage. But then I need to use things to get through these guys, so... It's a bit of a conundrum. He's buggered off, is he? Cool. That's what we want. It's a good number of guys that you have to get through as well. Ah. Oh, there we go. It did just say your maximum nanotech has increased, didn't it? Like just before, like how it normally does. I don't know why I started to randomly think, like, did that say your maximum nanotech has been reached? I don't think it did. Because I've been wondering that if it'll get to like 100 or something and then it'll, you know, max out. Oh shit. Come on. Still, I think like another 3 of those big guys that spawn in though. Oh, whatever. Where did that come from? Nah. Nah. I don't think there's any more ammo back here that I missed. I really do have to literally make sure I get like everything that I can. Because I cannot afford to like leave anything behind really. So look at that. They're trying to shoot me from like all the way over there. See what I mean about that? Their range is just weirdly set in terms of how sometimes they'll shoot at you from one distance, other times they're, you know. I feel like there should be like a vendor somewhere around here. So that obviously once you get to the actual final thing you can't whatever, but I feel like they should let you get into that final thing with full ammo. I don't see that as being like unfair at all. It's also weird how there's that building and then there's just nothing. Like to do with it, like it's just weirdly how it's just there. So, anyway. What? Nothing fucking hit me then. Whatever. Yeah, nah, that wasn't even there before, dickhead. That wasn't even there. I literally just walked out and then suddenly the stream appeared like already there. That's bullshit. Yeah, there's some bullshit going on here. You could take care of those guys. It's funny because I think every other time I've actually shot those guys myself because I thought I needed to. But if you actually get up close enough to them, they seem to get kind of taken care of. Oh. Whoa. Dodging those, eh? That's honestly the thing that hits me the most. Is those bloody... Look at that. Look at how I just completely disintegrated the hell out of him with that gun. He's about to throw the bombs. Come on, do you, buddy? Oh, he's doing this. Ah! I got him. Can you believe that? How insanely different that was.
It's almost time for my solo.
Begin the transformation!
I call it Base Odyssey.
Now, Lawrence!
If you insist.
Oh no, there's a giant robot for a change. That was insanely different how with that sniper rifle, how quickly I whittled him down. If I just saved the ammo for that, that was a completely different experience. Like 180 degrees.
Congratulations. You have reached your maximum nanotech level.
Oh, now I've reached it. Yeah, so 100's the top. Ah. Yeah, that one wasn't that hard at all. There wasn't really much strategy to that except just sort of keep strafing and also kind of go up and down a bit to just sort of...
Lawrence, engage the teleporter. Would you care to specify a destination, sir?
Who cares? Just get us out of here. What? That wasn't even close to 60 seconds!
We're live from the star-studded premiere
That was
of the latest
insanely
horror
different
film,
though.
The Secret Agent
How I
Craze.
struggled against that guy
Atmosphere is positively
and that other go
as thousands of fanatical
at the end of
fans
that third
caught a
stream,
glimpse of their
and
favorite
then
celebrities.
I just took him went on like consciously with the sniper rifle, like just save the ammo for that, and that was just insanely different. I've never had a more like opposing sort of experience of the same thing. That looks way better than like the movie they were filming.
Agent Clank, it seems your luck has finally run out. The come to say goodbye. Your tricks won't do you any good this time, Agent Clank. I have been waiting for this moment a long time.
The
and
monkey.
Now I am going to blow you into a million pieces. Get this thing off me!
Well, he got that monkey off his back.
It's kind of weird how Ratchet's still wearing the helmet like at the movie premiere.
Do not even
Like they just didn't want to go to the effort of making like a character model of him wearing a tuxedo or anything, you know? Just for that thing. Like, nah, that's effort. And that's it. Unless there's like a post-credit scene, which I think they do. They did in the first one. I can't remember if they did in the second one. But that's Ratchet and Clank 3. Up your arsenal. Fairly quick that I managed to take the boss out that time when you just go on with the right weapon. It's all about how you do it, I suppose. But yeah, it's been an interesting one. Definitely, I'd say much more infuriating overall, probably than the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, the original the OG Crash Bandicoot trilogy. But this is that was a PS1. It's funny as well. I did a PS1 trilogy, then I did a PS2 trilogy. I almost feel like I need to do a PS3 trilogy now or something. Like I'm keep like there's some theme going on there. The next games I was actually thinking of doing are actually all PlayStation 1. But they're not platforming games, so it's also like games as they get along further to those consoles. There's not as many trilogies that I can think of that are only on that one console of that generation of like PS3 or Xbox 360 kind of thing. Because games start taking longer and longer to come out between between their release dates, and also I feel like you start to notice more and more like games getting a bit more and more different between each iteration. Whereas, as we've seen with these, with Crash Bandicoot, the OG trilogy, and the original, the OG Ratchet and Clank trilogy, there's upgrades and differences between them, but overall they're kind of like the same game, just with improvements. Like they've been working away at it and sort of tinkering around with it and going, well, what if we do this or what do we do that? Or we'll improve upon this. And then some things are definite improvements of like, oh, hey, like they needed to add the strafing mode in. That just the first game didn't have that, and they clearly noticed that was something that should be in there. So the second and third game and everything onwards have that. But then other things are like, oh, we'll change around the health bar this way, or we'll do this thing with the health or something. And then, we'll add these weapons in and we'll change this weapon around like this, or, just things they're changing around, tinkering with it. How like this one definitely was the most sort of shoot 'em up kind of iteration of the three. and you know, compared to like the first two, definitely were like, you know, platforming games with a shooting element. And as I said, you know, this one was like a shoot 'em up game with a platforming element. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, so from 2002 to 2003 to 2004, we've gone through a nice little, you know, walk down memory lane here. Of that was the Ratchet and Clank trilogy, the 02, 03, 04, but even with Crash Bandicoot, the 96, 97, 98. Some a strong bit of platforming gaming from my past. I remember I said on another stream where that was basically these two trilogies that I played of Crash Bandicoot and Ratchet and Clank, as well as the Super Mario Land game for Game Boy. That was basically all the platforming games that I really played as a kid. And that's most of them, but there was also another one that I forgot about that I sort of played a little bit as well. Like, there was quite a few other platforming games that I sort of might have hired out and played for it like a day or two or something, but there was another one that I forgot that I swear I actually played quite a bit of, and I can't even remember it now. But there's so many of them out there that were... Jack and Daxter maybe it was. I think I talked about that at one point, where I played the first one a bit, because I think I owned the first one when I was a kid. But yeah, the platforming game was definitely sort of a highlight of my childhood, because it was sort of also one of the few things that they could kind of do with gaming. And then this was the evolution of it, of them trying to like break out of the sort of 2D bounds that they had been in the past with, you know, like Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario. Like Crash Bandicoot was especially sort of a step out, you know, going into a bit more of a 3D realm with that genre. And then Ratchet and Clank was like another level where there was this shooting element to it, and just how 3D it kind of got, because you're walking around in a 3D this forwards, this way, that way kind of world. Whereas even Crash Bandicoot and its sort of 3D-ishness, you were still going along a set path. It was just you were going forwards as opposed to sideways alongwards, but it was still kind of a fixed, not rail shooter or anything. It wasn't a rail kind of game, but you know, you're going along just in a certain direction. Mainly forwards, but sometimes, you know, backwards when something's chasing you. Whereas Ratchet and Clank, actually, you move in multiple different directions, like running around a map, and this way and that way, backwards and forwards, and you're buying weapons and ammo, and you know, you're even, like, as I said, you know, strafing. You know, that was another sort of very shoot 'em up sort of thing that came into the game, which needed to be there, should have been there from the get go, but just wasn't. You know, but yeah, it's interesting how you see it evolve across the three games, especially when you play them in such short order. You know, like between each other, you get to see the evolution of it a bit more consciously, because you're looking so quickly from one to the next. And so yeah, it's interesting, because also like Ratchet and Clank's a series that continued on a bit more definitively, like, you know, whereas Crash Bandicoot kind of veered off, and they made multiple other games, but they've not really been considered legitimate anymore, because they, as I mentioned in another stream, they they sort of reset the continuity with the most recent one, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, which acts as if all the games after the third one, Crash Bandicoot Warped, didn't take place. So, you know, there's almost like, if I'm going to play another Crash Bandicoot game, it'll be the fourth one that I'll go to and play, which I eventually will, which I've actually never played that one, so it's not like that'll be a walk, even though it's a more recent game anyway, so it's not a classic game, one that I've played or not played. It's not even a classic game, it's just, it's not, and most of all, to all of our fans who have stuck with us, yeah, no sheep or ducks were harmed in the making of this game. Well, I'd hope not. No sheep, I'm trying to remember where the sheep were, or the duck. Oh, that would be the guns that turn people into, hey, I get you.
What do you
Yeah.
mean we
Here we go,
can't
post-credits soon.
transport to a planet?
I'm afraid we're well out of range, sir. Perhaps if you had bothered to specify a destination.
When will we be in range?
Oh, I'm sure something will come along in, say, 5 or 10,000 years.
How are they able to teleport there, but they're not able to teleport away from there? Because they've got the teleporting technology. Why is it limited in range there? You know?
I don't suppose you
Like, if they didn't have the teleporting technology, if it was just like it was where it was, and then it sent them somewhere and that's it. You know, like, that's one thing, but... Here we go. Congratulations, Ratchet, on defeating Dr. Nefarious. At this point, you can time walk back to just before you finish the game with Square, or you can enter challenge mode with Circle. This is like the end of the second game. In challenge mode, you start a new game against tougher enemies, but all of your experience, weapons, armor, and money from the current game carry over. There are other surprises as well. Yeah, we'll do that. Not that I'm going to actually play it right now or anything. It's just, you know, I'm going to leave the save game on this. Yeah. It's been a let's save this game. It's been an interesting one. The end of a trilogy. And yeah, with Ratchet and Clank, they actually continued on the series in a more definitive way, where they haven't excluded any games. You know, they haven't gone and done a sequel that then says, hey, these other ones didn't take place. So there's effectively this I think it's 9 games they're up to now in the continuity. So I've only played through 3 of them. And the 4th one is an arena shooter, as I've stated, which the 3rd one definitely got into quite a bit. It definitely, I'll address those sort of comments where, like, as I was noticing playing this game, there was a bit of a, like, run-of-the-mill, I don't know, what was the word I kept calling it? There was a sort of a word or a phrase I kept sort of saying, I kind of kept calling it. Like, it just felt very, not rushed, but it felt very sort of, like, yeah, not exactly rushed, because sometimes I kept giving it criticism of, like, you know, oh, they weren't testing the gameplay of it, and maybe they sort of weren't, because sometimes you would notice dramatically different weird little differences, like a sort of a robot soldier that you would encounter multiple of being sort of a lot tougher than like a big robot tank thing or something that would come along that should have, you got the impression that was meant to be tougher, but it wasn't. Just weird things like that, because like the way the speed at which they'd have soldiers fire and stuff, and it seemed like something that was untested. Maybe it was, though, you know, you just don't know. But the speed at which these games came out, though, you know, they're only coming out 1 year after the other, so it's not a huge amount of time between them. But that's what I mean about as well, about how they don't look that different from each other. It's just as each one goes on, like they're sort of tinkering around with the same game more and more. So like by the time you get to you would think by the time you get to the 3rd game, you're getting to the most polished version of that game. But it's sort of, they tinker this way and that way with it a little bit each time. So there's a lot I liked about the 3rd one, but I feel like overall probably the 2nd one really might actually be the, could potentially be my favourite. Potentially. There's not anything that I, you know, loved that they really added into the 3rd one, I think is the problem. It's just more, it felt very meh, you know, very sort of run-of-the-mill, sort of paint by numbers, you know. Like, you could tell they'd sort of, like, it felt very much like they'd something, like, slapped together very quickly. But not, as I say, but when you say that, though, it sounds like you're saying it's a, you know, maybe it looks bad or something. And not that. It's more the fact that it seems very, like, you can tell the way the levels in the first 2, there's a lot of thought gone into them. You know, just the design of them and all this and that and the other, and even the story going on. Like, you can tell there's just a bit more, it feels like there's a lot more effort has gone into it. And with the 3rd one, it felt very rushed, like, just get another one out. And, which is kind of funny because the 2nd one only came out a year after the 1st, but maybe they just had a bit more of an idea what the sequel would be going into it and were a bit more prepared for that one. And then with the 3rd one, maybe they weren't as prepared. Like, oh, you want us to do another one? You know, holy hell, shit, what now? You know, we only really had an idea for one sequel and, you know, what we were going to do to improve it. And so now for a 3rd one, we're not quite sure. It'll be interesting to look into that. But it very sort of, you know, can tell with a lot of the game, like it feels like you can see they've gone to effort to try and stretch something out to make a game, you know. So it's not that it's made badly necessarily overall. It's more that it's just, you know, as opposed to just being like multiple levels that are all kind of got different things going on. it's like you can see there's a lot of those arenas that it would put you into. You know, where you're fighting alongside those ranger robots, or you've got to do missions for those ranger robots a lot of the time, you know, when you're at the lead of them. And so, and them trying to incorporate, like, you know, utilize a lot of that as space for the amount of missions, as opposed to having you do levels and different objectives, whereas the first two games felt like you had a lot of different kinds of interesting objectives to do. And like the story, it felt like the story just felt a bit more involved in the first two, whereas this third one felt a bit more detached, like you were just moving through events that were happening. You know, like even the chick in this third one, the that whatever her name was, the captain of the Phoenix ship or whatever it was, Starship Phoenix, that whatever her name was, the president's daughter, it just felt all very run of the mill. You know, like the characters there felt quite detached compared to the first two. Yeah, it just had this very sort of, you know, and it's not something I remember taking note of when I played them back in the day. And I played the second and third one quite a bit, as I've mentioned previously, because I actually owned the second and third one when PS2 was kind of the current generation console. I only ever hired out the first one, so I played through it, but I never owned it, so I didn't have it sitting on hand to just play, you know, whenever I wanted. Whereas I do remember playing the second and the third one like quite a few times, just as something to do, as sort of like the shoot, you know, and sort of doing the arena or something or other, the battle arena, and I think must have been the third one, like going and doing that quite a bit. And so yeah, it was interesting sort of taking note of these little technicalities and differences. And it'll be interesting seeing, because as I said, I'm not going to play the fourth one because it literally is just an arena game. And there is a story going on, but it's really literally just, you could say that there was a story going on in this one, but it felt the most attached and whatever. So I'm probably going to skip the fourth one, Ratchet and Clank Deadlocked, because it is just a thing where you're set all just in a battle arena. So it's not even really a platforming game. It literally is just an arena shooter thing. It seems to be sort of a little kind of almost a spin-off game, you know, where it can be in the continuity, but it's like a Crash Bash or a Super Mario Party, you know, or a you know, Mario Kart kind of spin-off game where it's, you know, let's take these characters and just plonk them all in this other little kind of thing, Mario Golf or something. And so yeah, like the next one, whenever I do play it, that'll be the one, and they're actually on PS3. The next 3 or 4. I don't know if they actually released any for. They probably did release something for PS4, but I don't remember. Oh, it was that reboot one, the one when they released the movie that was based on the same story, which was a reboot of the first game. The movie was a retelling of the first game, and then there was a game that was a you know, video game version of the movie. So it was like that. I think it might have come out in 2016 or something, somewhere around there. And it was, I remember making the joke of, it was like, it's kind of like what is it, like Street Fighter the movie, the game, you know, where it's the product's almost inverted back in on itself. Yeah, so Tools of Destruction was PS3. Into the Nexus was PS3. And so actually, no, they didn't release one. What happened to that one that I played on PS4, though? I don't see it mentioned here. There's the one that they released. They don't seem to mention it in that list of games. Yeah, it came out in 2016. But but it's not set in the it's funny, it says the game was followed by Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So this game came out on PS4. It's the one Ratchet and Clank game that came out on PS4, which is kind of interesting because though the franchise went a little bit quiet, there was like 4 games that released on PS2, 4 games that released on PS3, and then the only game they released on PS4 was the reboot one, which is kind of set in its own, you know, continuity really, because it's not it's not part of the other games, the story of the other games, so it's kind of in its own little world. And it's not exactly a world they follow on from, because it's basically just a sort of a product. Even though it was fun to play, I've played it on PS4, it's just really a sort of a tie-in with the movie, which wasn't too bad either, the Ratchet and Clank movie. I found it to be, it was interesting and it was sort of humorous. But yeah, it's interesting that it went so quiet for that. Like, there was no main entries on that series on the PS4, but comes back strong on the PS5 with the latest one. So that'd be interesting as well to sort of see the franchise evolve and just what they can do with the latter consoles, especially even PS3. Like, well, when they actually make it for the PS3, what can you do with a Ratchet and Clank game? And then with a PS4, I saw a PS4 version, as I say, the 2016 one, the reboot one. But then even PS5, what can you do, with a Ratchet and Clank game on that? All the different potentials. So it'll be interesting to see the series evolve when I return to it. But for the meantime, this has been Jay Darklighter playing the Ratchet and Clank trilogy. Till next time.